Hey everyone, and welcome back to Gear Facts. Today we're looking at one of my old favorites from my old show, the Korg Microsampler. It's a good fun sampler to use. It's quite simple and straight to the point, particularly if you want to construct an entire song. The onboard sequencing section here is very simple, quite intuitive and utterly uncomplicated. The effects and bank selection side of things is a little bit more complicated and definitely not intuitive. Sampling itself, though, is extremely simple. You just press the sampling button, press it again, and you will make a sample. But I won't do that right now because I want to show you some of the demo samples that are included with this. And I got my timing wrong, but you get the general idea. There are 9 sections packed with really good samples to get you started when using the microsampler. So that's 9 banks basically, and every key, or pretty much every key, has its own sample. Some of them are chromatic, and on that point I'll just mention that if you sample something and there are no samples above it, it will go chromatic up the keys until the next key where there is actually a new sample. And that's not a limitation, that's a good thing. So you can plan your sampling in such a way that anything melodic can be up here, anything rhythm can be down here, and spot samples can be in the middle, or any way you like, but you can use that strategically to make the keyboard really work for you. Let's take a quick look at the sampler section. Okay, I was unable to get a particularly good camera angle on this, but basically we can save 16 sequences. So when you load up one of your 9 banks that are full of samples, most of them have a sequence song built in so you can get a feel for how it works. But to put it quickly and simply, you can select one of your patterns. Presumably if you were starting a new song, you would start with pattern number 1, press record, and you simply play, and it will record and quantize everything that you play. Your editing is very, very limited, so it helps if you get it right the first time, but it's easy to go back and redo. And generally the system is laid out in such a way that you'll record 4 or 8 bars, or even just 1 or 2 bars if you like, for each of the pattern numbers. So once you've got your first pattern the way you want it, you just move on to pattern number 2 and record a new one. And thus you'll sequence your way right through the whole song. You can't sequence the song in its entirety so that it's jumping between sequenced in the way you want it. You do have to do it manually as the song plays. But considering you're going to be sitting right in front of it, I don't really see that as much of a limitation. Let's have a listen to the first few bars of this demo song. Move to sequence number 2. And then I can go to sequence number 3 and be ready for it. It'll play right through 2 before it begins 3. And there you go. So as the song plays, you just send it wherever you want to be in your 16 different patterns. And in theory, if you were performing live, you could just go ahead and just keep on doing that for hours and hours, adding in your own samples from the keyboard as you go, which will give you some variation to your performance. But just think about the scope of that. 16 patterns within each of your 9 banks, plus all the extra things that you can do on the keyboard, plus there are some nice effects tricks that you can do as well. You can have a massive set built into the microsampler and have no trouble providing a few hours entertainment for the people. So press the sampling button, find the key that you want to sample to, and go ahead and talk in the mic. Over on this side it's not quite so simple. This took me a long time to get the hang of, and even now it still kind of bumps me off balance slightly. To change pretty much anything, you go into Edit first of all, and the top dial here will change you through all of the parts, sections that you can edit of the keyboard. So for example, right round to the left, you can change your banks. Now my instinct is to go to the value button and start changing the value of the bank between 1 and 9. But no, you've got to press enter before you do that in this quite deep recess in here. And then you can start to change different banks. So if we change to the sample ROM, for example, I turn my dial around to sample ROM, and then I've got to go up here and press enter. So the flashing is kind of inviting me to press that enter button. or I could press exit to go out of that and stay in the bank that I'm in. But it's still inviting me to press enter again because it's asking me if I'm sure I want to change to that ROM bank. Now you'll see some lights sliding across along the bottom here. That is the wait signal. That means it's loading up new samples, filling up all the keys with all the new samples, telling me it's complete there, and we now have the ROM bank. So getting back to our main parameter control here, we can change to different banks as we just saw. And here it's got me confused again. It's going to bank name first of all. So we're in the bank mode and now we can change parameters of the bank, like changing its name, its default tempo, and things like that. We have to exit back out and then press edit again to go to our main set of parameters up here. So we've looked at changing banks. The next is to change pattern sequences, change our method of sampling, as opposed to the next one, which is the sample, where we select a specific sample. In this case, we've got this D sharp here selected. Entering that would edit parameters for this particular sample. Still going around. We can start to edit effects by pressing enter there, or edit counterintuitively. We could choose from a list of effects. Then we've got our global settings, and yeah, I think that's it. So without going through each of the menus, what I'm saying in essence is it's really confusing around these 4 buttons and this display and these 2 dials. Perhaps if the display was a little bit more detailed, it wouldn't be quite so cryptic. But anyway, let's just go back to effects and go into edit and have a look at some of those. All of the sections under the parameter control here are things to do with one particular effect. You have to go right round to the left to actually change the effect. So effects type is your first position with the parameter control here. Then you can rotate the value control, starting with FX off. You go through compressor, filter, equalizer, distortion, decimator, reverb, delay, some more complex delays like pan and modulation delay. Then we've got tape echo, chorus, flanger, vibrato, phaser, tremolo, ring modulator, grain shifter, which is a really potent one, pitch shifter, torque modulator, and the looper. So that's a really good array of effects to choose from. Bear in mind you can only have one operating at a time, but you can do resampling if you want to layer effects. For example, if you want to make a guitar effect distorted and then also add some phaser and some delay to it, you can do that by resampling it layer after layer. Let's exit from that and go back to, yep, I'm confused again. Go back to our banks and change. See, it's confused me again. Okay, bank. Now I'm going to enter that and change to, here we go, say bank A. Alright, so now that you're as confused as I was about how to use that edit system over here, let's have a look at what's on the back panel. On-off switch there, USB, really handy. Some great software comes with this. It's available for a free download from Korg. You don't have to have the original disc that comes with the unit. Classic MIDI in and out. I always love to see those because I still use a lot of my old school equipment. And over here, this is one to watch out for, the microphone and line switch. It's very easy. I got caught once right in the middle of a show wondering why I couldn't sample my voice. It's because my switch was on line because I'd already taken a sample from the audience. So make sure that when it's you doing the talking, you're switched to your right as you're playing, and if you're sampling something external, you'll be on the left. Okay, it's a tiny switch, it's way out of the way, you can't see it. It is marked up here though, so use that as a bit of a reminder. It's a real trap, that one. Audio in left and right's there, so that's when your switch is on this side. You'll be sampling through those with a gain control of its own. Sorry, you couldn't quite see that there. With a gain control of its own. Outputs left and right, and of course your headphone socket. And underneath, battery power. Ah, how I love battery power in devices like this. It's very underutilized. These things don't use a whole lot of power, so listen up all you brands. There's really no excuse for not having little synthesizers and little samplers battery powered, like the Korg Microsampler. Love that feature. And right along the top panel here, we've got a couple of recessors. The idea was that you could put an iPhone or any little mobile device in there and it would sit up neatly so that you could see the screen clearly and take samples from it or record to it. Can't say I've ever done it myself. I guess it's a handy thing that you might use sometime. Up here we've got our bendy microphone. This is the one that comes with the Microsampler, the standard issue Korg mic that comes with quite a few of their keyboards. It's very nice and robust, and the actual gooseneck holds its shape really, really well. I hate the ones that flop around uselessly and don't retain the shape that you've bent them into. So that's some good design there. And good design really is what it's all about with the Microsampler. It's extremely light, it's very durable, everything feels nice and tough. I do have one or two little reservations about the positioning of that line switch over there and the menu system. As I said, maybe it's just me, but I find it's just a little wilderness that you can get lost in there, and that's quite frustrating. But I reckon that anybody who gives it a go would have a whole lot of fun with the Microsampler. The sheer scope that it gives you for sampling a massive range of tones that will give you a just as massive set of possibilities with creating full compositions is pretty much unparalleled in a unit of this size and portability. So I greatly recommend it. For the purpose of my show, I have moved on to the Casio XWP-D1, and I'm sure some of you will laugh when you hear that, but it's not really a fair comparison, because the reason I went with the Casio is because it is very colourful. It has a lot of big lights on it, and it's shaped like the Millennium Falcon. I'll put up a link to that demo. It is really quite interesting. But if you're serious about sampling and you're not just doing the on-the-spot stuff that I do in my shows, then I think you'll have a world of fun with the Korg Microsampler. Thanks for watching Gear Facts, guys. I look forward to seeing you next time. Here are some links to some other things that might interest you, including that XWPD1 link, and I'll see you next time on Gear Facts.